There is one simple rule in politics that is rarely diverted from. In times of uncertainty, fear often drives people to extreme ideologies. One of the best examples of this is Nazi Germany. The reason that the German people chose to follow Adolf Hitler was that he promoted nationalism. From the deeds of the Nazi-run Germany was the Holocaust, the United Nations, the creation of Israel, and, in part, the Cold War. The Holocaust was an attempt by the German people to extinguish the Jewish population inhabiting the regions that they had occupied. The United Nations was created to be an international force that would be willing to ensure that another event such as the Holocaust would not be able to occur again. The creation of Israel came from the United Nations after a decision that the Jewish people would be placed in another section of land after being removed from their homes. Britain had taken a piece of the Palestinian territory and formed Israel. The result was the Cold War. This was a war between the United Soviet Socialist Republic and the United States that lasted from the end of World War II in 1945 until the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. The reason it is a Cold War was that there was only one case of fighting which took place at the North Korean skies as a dogfight during the North Korean War. There were signs of the Cold War emerging during World War II, specifically after the mass destruction of Nagasaki and Hiroshima by the atomic bombs dropped by America, while the Red Army was marching towards the island nation of Japan. But there was another time in which America had taken its chances with a figure that held a more extreme set of ideologies, and that figure was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Former President Roosevelt was a man that was very active until he was struck with polio. But this was not all bad, since many of his deeds of helping those who needed help came from his own experience with helplessness. One to help people came the New Deal, a set of programs that was designed to give people the help and jobs that they needed while attempting to pull the economy out of the Great Depression. Whether the New Deal was successful or not is debatable. The deal did follow his ideas called the 3 R's, which were relief, recovery, and reform. After the Great Depression came World War II, which along with World War I led to major changes in the economy, society, and culture. The changes that were experienced were that women and minorities were now taking the jobs that were either left vacant or held by white men during the time of non-war periods. Women began to act more similar to men, as in smoking in public and behaving in their own manner. This is while African Americans began to serve in armed forces and even had their own unit, but nonetheless, they still gained no respect. Even after all this, there were still many questions, such as, is there such thing as a good war, and what is America's role in the world? I have my personal beliefs, which are that a good war is capable when an unwilling participant is being slaughtered, when they pose little or no provocation, and a third party steps in. The second question, I believe that America has become a figure in the war that everybody badmouths when they think they cannot be heard, but they are pretty much spoken in a good manner when they need something. It is basically a situation in which you need nothing from the person until you need something, and then it's time to be nice. From October 1929 until the end of World War II, the United States was in an economic distress known as the Great Depression. The Great Depression was a result of overproduction of goods after World War I, people purchasing goods on credit, and the stock market crash. The Great Depression led to the election of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who subsequently created programs known as the SDC, FHA, and SSA, to name a few. The Great Depression led to a refusal to purchase foreign goods because they would not stimulate the American economy. This then led to a ripple effect that would affect other nations that trade with America, and subsequently the nations that traded with America. During the period after Adolf Hitler was elected and before the start of World War II, he was performing acts that were not allowed according to the Treaty of Versailles. One such act was the annexation of the Sudeten land. The reason that the Allied forces in Europe took so long to react was that they tried a method called appeasement, in which they would allow Hitler to keep the goods that he had taken as long as he had promised not to do it again. The reason that it took the nation so long to finally react was that they did not want another war, especially after going through World War I. The war in Europe began when the Allied forces in the region finally realized that Hitler would not stop. The European theater was characterized by a two-front war and the Blitzkrieg. The two-front war was the method that defeated Germany because supplies would normally serve for one front had to satisfy two fronts, in which then strained resources. The Blitzkrieg was an attack method the Germans used that would begin by an artillery barrage, followed by tanks to destroy the remaining forces in the area, then armed forces to finally take over the land. The War in the Pacific began after Pearl Harbor, where the Japanese launched a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor to remove the United States forces out of the Pacific, giving Japan enough time to take over China. During this time, a fleet of American destroyers and aircraft carriers had been out at sea, which meant the Japanese could only cripple the American forces. The Pacific theater was characterized by island hopping, which is where the approaching forces would take islands that would lead to the target. The war in the Pacific ended with the dropping of the atomic bomb on Nagasaki and Hiroshima.